The Dallas Stars continued their winning ways over the weekend, grabbing two crucial points in Glendale, Arizona against the Coyotes on Saturday. On today's show, I'll give you a full breakdown of that game, so give you some of my biggest takeaways from the game. And then to close out the show, we'll talk a little bit about some of the trade rumors that have developed over the past few days. All of this coming up on a Monday edition of Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis. It is Monday, November 29th, and we are getting closer and closer to the end of 2021, folks. It's insane. This year has seemingly flown by, but also at the same time, feels kind of slow. I feel like I'm saying that every year at this point. But that truly is the case, especially these past few months. Pretty much this hockey season, it seems to have flown by. It seems like just the other day we were talking about how bad this team was, talking about them losing to Columbus and to Vegas at home in a game that they should have won. But now the Dallas Stars seem to have turned a new leaf and are playing like the team that we thought that they could be at the start of this season. So a lot of exciting things happening here in Dallas right now with a lot of the sports teams, but specifically with the Dallas Stars. And so we're going to take some time today and talk about Saturday's big win. And then to close out the show, talk a little bit about some John Klingberg trade rumors. And before we do that, I do want to take a moment and say thank you for stopping by today's episode of Locked On Stars. Whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener, thank you for making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. Be sure to subscribe and follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts at, whether that is on a podcasting platform or on YouTube as well. Continuing to see great growth on the YouTube channel. So thank you guys for that. But without any further hesitation, let's get right down to business talking about Saturday's huge win over the Arizona Coyotes. And I keep saying huge win, and it wasn't huge in the sense that they beat a really big name opponent in the team that maybe they shouldn't have beat. I don't think anyone who's been watching hockey this season can tell you that this Stars team on paper is better than the Arizona Coyotes team. But it was huge because it was the second game of a back-to-back on the road. And even though Arizona is definitely not a good team this season, they do have some really good talent. And I think that they're better than their record would indicate. They've given some big name teams some trouble this season. They gave the Blues some trouble. I think they gave Edmonton a little bit of trouble whenever they played them a little while ago last week. So this isn't a terrible team. They're a rebuilding team with a lot of really good young talent and a lot of, upside for the future here in the next coming seasons. But this is a game that very easily could have slipped away from the Dallas Stars. But thankfully, they came out with a 3-2 win, and they grabbed two crucial points to keep them, fighting, inching closer to that top spot in the Central Division. But the biggest takeaway from this game easily has to be the hot start from the Stars, especially the hot start that we saw from Dallas's top line. Roope Hintz scored against the Coyotes 54 seconds into the game. And this is, literally one day after we saw Joe Pavelski scored twice in a 19-second span in the first 2 minutes of their game on Friday night against the Colorado Avalanche. And so, both of these games, the Stars benefited from this top line, generating chaos around the net and making really nice plays. Jason Robertson, though he was not the scorer either of the times I just mentioned, he was involved in those plays, especially on Friday with Joe Pavelski. But also, Jason Robertson did score later on in this game on Saturday. So, this top line from Dallas is really clicking right now. Like I said, creating a lot of chaos around the net. That Roope goal against Arizona was nice because Roope shoots the puck, gets blocked. Joe Pavelski gets the puck. He shoots it, probably knowing that the shot probably wasn't going to go in. Wedgwood, the goalie for Arizona, had a pretty good play on it. But then Roope gets the ricochet again, shoots it right back into the net. Really nice play from Pavelski and Roope on the same page, just creating chaos around the net, throwing the puck at the goalie, making him work, kind of putting him in a tough situation where he's back on his heels. And, of course, you put enough pressure on a guy like that, the puck is eventually going to find the back of the net. And, both of the games on Friday and Saturday, that really sets the tone for Dallas if they're able to score be the first team to score in general, but especially if they're able to score as quick as they did. That does so much for you as a team to build confidence, but it also takes away confidence from the other team and changes how the other team then has to approach the game from that point on. Because, you come into a game with the game plan, every coach is like, all right, this is what we need to do. They tell their players kind of what the expectations are, but surrendering a goal or 2 goals in the first 2 minutes of a game absolutely changes how you have to play the game. It throws the entire team out of a rhythm. The coaches out of a rhythm. They are scrambling to kind of change the game plan and adjust the lineups if needed. So huge for Dallas, to get these 2 division wins back to back, by striking early. And hopefully that's something that we can see continue. I don't know if they're going to score in the first 2 minutes against the Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday, although it would be really nice and it would probably do them, a huge favor in propelling them to a win against a great opponent, but more on that later. But talking about this top line from the Stars, they're really turning into one of the best in the league up to this point. Ever since Rupe scored his first goal against the Predators back on November 10th, he, Jason Robertson, and Pavs have really not slowed down, and the Stars are benefiting greatly from it as a team. Miro Heiskanen leads the team in points as of right now, but Joe Pavelski, Jason Robertson, and Rupe Hintz all follow in that order. Pavs with 14, Robo with 13, and Rupe with 12. So it's really nice to see that the 3 guys leading this team offensively, the guys that, that we thought in the preseason were going to be the leaders of this team offensively. Even though it took them a little bit, they have stepped into that role and they are filling that role quite nicely. Rupe Hintz, obviously is on a nice point and scoring tear right now. He now leads the team in goals with 7. The nice thing about this Stars team is they have several guys that can find the back of the net, and we've seen that this season. Not too many games where one guy has scored multiple goals. Obviously, Joe Pavelski's done it. Rupe's done it. But maybe a few other guys on the team have done it that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But this Stars team is nice because there's so many guys that can be effective. Maybe not till later in the season are we going to see someone really pull away with goals. But it's nice to see Rupe leading the team now after not scoring, up until what was it, the 14th, 15th game against Nashville just a few weeks ago. So really nice to see him hitting his stride. Jason Robertson missing the first few games of the season. He's really starting to hit his stride. Joe Pavelski aging like fine wine. His confidence is continuing to build despite being 37 years old. I would put this top 3 Dallas line, this top line for Dallas really against any in the league right now. Hyman, McDavid, and Puljujärvi of Edmonton. Obviously, we saw how those guys did against Dallas just last Tuesday. Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak of Boston, Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Wilson of Washington, and I could go on, but, and even I believe it was Mike Heika in the post-game press conference after the game against Colorado on Friday. I believe it was him. Somebody at the press conference asked, how Coach Bowness would compare his top line against others in the league. And Coach Bowness said, he hasn't really seen enough of some of the other top lines, but that he really likes the 3 that he has. And, that he's confident in them to go out and, perform well every single night. And I think that's how I feel as of right now. And I think that's how the Stars community in general feels right now. That these top 3 guys for Dallas are leading the way. I think this team is going to continue to go as they go. So if they stay hot and if they, keep improving and keep playing well as the season goes on, I think Dallas is going to be just okay. And they'll there's still a lot of season left, and, they're not quite in the playoff picture as of right now, but, still a lot of hockey to be played. And I think, if we can keep these guys going, and, it obviously helps to have other really nice weapons too. And the Dallas Stars certainly have that. Like I said, Miro Heiskanen, and even efforts from guys like Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, of course, always helpful. But really nice to see the top line performing and getting the team out to some hot starts, especially in 2 games back to back where, the team is mentally, being tested, physically being tested. Really nice to see that kind of performance from guys that are expected to be leading the way for this Dallas Stars team. Well, coming up next, I will continue to break down Saturday's game, talk about another thing that I really, really liked from Saturday, and that is the Dallas Stars toughness overall. But before we do that, got to take a moment and say thank you to one of the sponsors of today's episode, and that is DirecTV. Today, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment that you love without the hassle. DirecTV Stream brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before. which means that you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Moving on to the next segment of today's episode of Locked on Stars, your first listen of the day. I want to take a moment and just talk about the toughness that this team showed on Saturday. And really, you could argue that they've showed a lot of toughness this season, but especially over these past few games, especially over these past 2 games from the weekend against Colorado and Arizona. Dallas really came through, playing against a well-rested team. Dallas came in a pretty much the exact opposite situation of this Coyotes team. Dallas fresh off another game against a really good opponent, having to travel after that game overnight to another city in a different time zone. One of the closer teams that they'll travel to this season, but still difficult to do nonetheless against a well-rested team. I don't think Arizona had played since Wednesday. I believe Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, was their last game that they had played. So they were well rested playing at home. Like I said earlier, a talented team that definitely has the potential to, give any other team in this league a run for their money on any given night. And it's a game that could have easily gotten away from the Stars, kind of like a trap game, like I had said, I think in a few episodes ago, but the Stars showed up and they worked hard. They grinded it out. It wasn't necessarily the prettiest win that they've had so far this season. A 3-2 win over a team like Arizona. Maybe, you look at that without doing too much research into this game, and you're like, maybe wanting a little bit more from that, a little bit more to be desired from that as a result. But, it's huge for Dallas to come in and get 2 wins, or 2 points, get a win and, get 2 wins in this back-to-back, get 2 points on the road Saturday, an inch closer to the top of the Central Division, especially, the real emphasis here is just establishing themselves on the road where they've played pretty subpar so far this season, outside of a few nice wins like New York, Calgary, Pittsburgh. But other than that, Dallas has really not been able to get much going on the road. And I think that Saturday, despite it being against inferior competition, was a step in the right direction for the Stars to continue to show that they're a really, really good team, and should be taken seriously by any squad that they play this season. And, it was really nice for a brief moment on Saturday. They occupied the second wild card spot, and then some of the other games ended. I believe just about everyone in the Central won on Saturday, except obviously, I think Colorado beat Nashville, so Nashville didn't win. But I know Winnipeg beat Calgary, and Arizona obviously did not win. But, the division shifting around a little bit. I believe St. Louis won. I think they played Columbus, but I'm almost certain they won. But at one point, Dallas was second in the second wild card spot, whereas, if the season ended today or that day, they would have been there, but they got moved just because of some of the other game results. But they're literally right on the tail of some of these other Central Division teams. And with the win on Tuesday and, some wins over these next few games, they could easily find themselves getting closer and closer to a top 3 spot in the division. So that's really nice to see. Really nice to see the resilience from this team to continue to fight back, because this is a tough division. Just even if Dallas is going to keep winning, a lot of these other teams are probably also going to keep winning. So it's important for Dallas to rack up as many wins as they can and to get as many points as they can. So hopefully some of these instances where they've lost games, like the game against Vegas earlier this season, don't come back to bite them, because every point is going to matter come the end of the season when it comes to playoff positioning. And just speaking of toughness, we talk about them having to come on the road after playing at home, traveling overnight. I think a guy that really embodied the toughness of the Stars as a whole has to be Jacob Peterson. If you watched the game, you saw that he crashed into the boards early in the game, was very slow to get up, pretty nasty hit, just kind of an unfortunate falling situation, got tangled up with another player. Don't think it was a dirty play by any means I can't remember who he collided with off Arizona's team. Just kind of an unfortunate situation. That stuff happens in hockey, but always scary to see a guy crash into the boards like that. Thankfully, he appears to be okay and showed that he was okay. He comes back later in the game in the second period and puts Dallas up 2-1 with a really nice goal. And just, I think that was really representative of for the team as a whole throughout the whole night. It was kind of a weird game, just watching it. Something just felt off. I'm not sure what it was. I really couldn't tell you. Maybe you agree if you got to watch the game on TV, or maybe even if you were there, if the vibes were weird, feel free to let me know on Twitter, or something like that. But it just felt kind of like a weird game. Things felt maybe a little off. I don't know what it was, but really nice for Dallas to get that win, especially with an effort like that from a young guy like Jacob Peterson, who continues to be very, very impressive in his rookie campaign. Not necessarily racking up the numbers like the kid Raymond in Detroit, but still playing really nice and not really succumbing to any kind of pressure for being a rookie here in the National Hockey League. Obviously started the season on the NHL level, went down to the AHL for a little bit, is now back here in Dallas with the NHL team, but continuing to play really well and providing some really nice shifts for the Stars, when he's out on the ice. And so I'm hoping to see him continue to improve because I think he has a lot of potential. I don't think he's done developing, or I don't think he's reached the peak of his game by any means. But a guy that continues to, grind every single day. I imagine, he's working hard at practice to continue to be a better player day in and day out. And I think that's showing on the ice, even if he's not going to be the team's leading goal scorer or point scorer. He's a guy that he has a lot of really good veterans around him to learn from and, get advice from and get veteran insight and leadership from. So really like what I've seen from Jacob Peterson. I think he truly embodied the toughness of the Dallas Stars. So he easily gets my star of the game, even if he wasn't, the most impactful on that game. He definitely left an impact, and always nice to see a guy fight back from a scary injury moment and then make an impact for his team. And certainly scoring that goal in the second period was huge for the Stars. And I think another thing that was impressive about this Stars win was that they did it without really having that many opportunities on the power play. That was another thing that made this game feel weird. I think anytime Dallas was on the power play, it was on the tail end of an Arizona power play where the teams kind of crossed over and played some 4-on-4. And so not really a full power play opportunity for the Stars. All three of their goals scored at even strength. And kind of unfortunate. Maybe they could have racked up some more goals with actual power play opportunities because like, I said on Saturday's show, Arizona's special teams, some of the worst in the league. So I think Dallas really could have taken advantage with a plethora of power play opportunities, but unfortunately we didn't get to see it. Thankfully, it didn't matter too much in the end. We saw Dallas do just fine without needing special teams, but they're definitely going to need the effort of their special teams on Tuesday because Carolina is a little bit better of a team than Arizona, believe it or not. But coming up next, speaking of Carolina, to close out today's episode, I want to take a moment and talk about some John Klingberg trade rumors and Carolina being the biggest destination for John Klingberg. But before we do that, I do want to take a moment and say thank you to some of the other sponsors of today's episode. And the first of those is Built Bar. It's finally here, folks. The best Monday of the year, Cyber Monday. And Built.com is the place to aim your mouse. Get at least 20% off everything delicious and healthy. That's 20% off site-wide. And even bigger discounts on Built Boost, Broth, and Built Swag. A brand new Built Bar flavor has landed just in time for Cyber Monday. Caramel Almond Delight. And it delivers everything it promises. Caramelized chocolate, check. Almonds, check. Delightful, double check. Be sure to get yours before they're gone. They contain 150 calories and 17 grams of protein. And this season, maybe you're craving some white chocolate. For a limited time, get a special new Built Bar Puffs flavor, white chocolate cheesecake, the yummy protein treat filled with marshmallowy center, covered in white chocolate with 140 calories and 17 grams of protein. 'Tis the season to save and give your taste buds the gift of Built Bar. Get to Built.com for these incredible tasting new bars and 20% off everything. Head to Built.com, enter code LOCKED20 before it's too late. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetOnline. It's Christmas time, and we all know what that means. Tons of sports on the TV, and nothing goes better with sports than betting. BetOnline has you covered all holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this holiday season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with the promo code LOCKEDON. And it's not just football that they offer. BetOnline has pro and college basketball, NHL, boxing, UFC, and even your favorite Vegas casino games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And to close out today's episode of Locked On Stars, do want to take a moment and acknowledge some of the trade rumors that are circulating around this Dallas Stars team, and particularly one of their defensemen, John Klingberg. Over the weekend, there were several rumors starting to arise from NHL media that the Carolina Hurricanes are interested in Stars defenseman John Klingberg. And it's a very interesting situation all around. Klinger's contract will expire at the end of this season, so he will be a free agent by the end of this season. And as of right now, it doesn't seem like that Klingberg necessarily wants to leave. I don't think the Dallas Stars want him to leave. Certainly this season. I don't know what the intentions are for, what is going to happen to him after this season. I've read several, articles and seen several tweets and posts saying that he's interested in staying in Dallas after the season, but looking for a deal around 8 years and $60 million. And that's a big ask for a guy that I believe is about to be 30. I think he's 29 years old right now, kind of in the young, late 20s, early 30s stages of his life, of his career. Man, and that's like Miro Heiskanen money. But Miro Heiskanen's a really young guy, a lot of potential, still some of his best hockey yet to be played. John Klingberg, a little bit of an older guy who's been around the league for a while, been with the Dallas Stars for a while, certainly been a staple of this team, become kind of a cult fan favorite of this team. And I just don't know. If he does stay, or if he doesn't get traded, if he's worth signing to that much money, because Denis Gurianov, his contract expires at the end of the season. He's in his early 20s. I think a guy that Dallas is probably going to want to bring back. Roope Hintz's contract expires at the end of the 2022-2023 season. He's certainly a guy the Dallas Stars would be insane not to want to keep Roope Hintz on the roster and well paid. Robo's contract expires at the end of this season. Jason Robertson, a Calder finalist last season, still playing on his rookie contract. Another guy that Jim Nill and company would be absolutely insane if they didn't want to keep him on the roster. And, Alexander Radulov and Joe Pavelski, their contracts expire at the end of this season. Both of them certainly at the twilight of their careers. But, if they're both still playing really good hockey, I don't see why Dallas might not try to sign them to, maybe 1 or 2 year deals. But still a lot to consider as far as, contracts and who's coming back and who's leaving at the end of this season. But I still don't think that Dallas is interested in trading Klinger right now. He's very valuable to this team, even if he's not always stuffing the stat sheet. Like I said, kind of like a cult favorite of the Dallas Stars fan base. A guy that's always ready to get down and grind to help win games. Like I said, not always going to be flashing the biggest stats, but a guy that, is really nice to have on the power play, on the 3-on-3 and overtime. Just nice to have on the ice at all times, because he's a really sappy veteran, knows how to make really good plays, really good hockey IQ, smart player, physical player, plays hard every time he's out on the ice. And, obviously I think it was killing him, eating him up on the inside to have to miss the first few games after getting injured in the season opener against New York. I think a guy that is respected in the locker room, respected by the fan base, respected by the front office. So I've read that too. I don't think Dallas is necessarily chomping at the bit to trade John Klingberg to anyone, especially the Hurricanes, unless the Hurricanes are just going to throw out someone crazy like Tony DeAngelo, another really good defenseman for the Hurricanes. But I can't envision him getting traded to Dallas. His contract expires at the end of this season, and he's only 26. So, that'd be a steal if they made that trade to Dallas. But I imagine the Canes wouldn't want to part ways with him. But that's the other thing is, I don't know who Dallas would try to get from Carolina. I would imagine they would need some kind of return as far as defensemen go, because, a forward would be nice, but I think Dallas has, a good amount of forward talent, unless they're just going to give us someone crazy like Sebastian Aho, which that's definitely not happening. That's completely out of the picture. So I really am curious, if a trade does go down, who Dallas would be getting in return, because I feel like it would need to be someone that can make an immediate impact, because I don't really know who you call up from the Texas Stars that's going to be able to fill the role of defenseman like John Klingberg would fill that role. We're already down Jamie Alexiak from, the offseason trade. And, Ryan Suter has been nice, and Yanni Hakanpää has been okay so far this season. So really we'll be curious to see how all of this transpires over, the next few weeks of this season. We're reaching about the quarter mark of the season. So trade rumors are about to be coming out the wazoo, not just John Klingberg, but across the NHL. So it'll be really interesting to see, where the Dallas Stars and what guys on the roster fall into trade rumors and find their, names thrown around and about around the league. So really interesting. I personally don't want to see John Klingberg leave unless we're going to get something absolutely insane in return. That would be a steal for the organization. But I think, Dallas, with their playoff aspirations, if they're serious about making a deep playoff run, I think John Klingberg certainly needs to be a part of that. He'll be a very valuable guy to have on the roster if Dallas finds themselves back in the postseason come springtime and summertime. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked on Stars. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as I'll be joined by Jared Ellis of Locked on Hurricanes to preview tomorrow's big matchup between the Stars and Hurricanes. And maybe we'll talk a little John Klingberg too. Maybe Jared can give us some insight on some guys that Carolina might be willing to part ways with in order to get Klinger on their roster. But thank you guys again for making Locked on Stars your first listen of the day. Now go make your second listen of the day the Locked on Bets podcast, your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked on Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Be sure to subscribe and follow the Locked on Stars podcast wherever you get your podcasts at, whether that is on a podcasting platform or on YouTube. And be sure to tell your friends about it. Leave a review if you like what you hear. I really do appreciate that kind of stuff. Be sure to find me and follow me on Twitter at Dane_Lewis. That's at DANE 2_Lewis. You can also find the show's account on Twitter at Locked on Stars. Appreciate all the follows, likes, and retweets that you guys give. You guys are incredible. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you back here for a game day edition of Locked on Stars. Have a great day, Stars fans.